Hey, welcome back to the Crabby Dice. Today we're going to be looking at Shipyard from one of my favorite designers, like I've said for the last 4 videos, and from CGE Games. So this is just a sanitized look on just the setup and rules video. If you want to see my opinion of the game and walkthrough or playthrough, click on the link below for that one. So at a high level, what is Shipyard? It's mostly a multiple rondel game. You've got rondels here, rondels all over the place. So we're going to be taking actions and doing things to try to build the best ships in our shipyard. Alright, so before we get started, remember the 3 things. Please subscribe, please like, and please comment on my videos. This might be a long one because there's a lot of stuff to explain, but let's get started right away. Alright, the shipyard setup. So for the setup, the playthrough, and the rules, I'm just going to be staggering these boards because I don't actually store my tokens onto here. I leave them in baggies, so just to save some space so I can zoom in a little better, I'll be doing that. Speaking of which, here's the baggies. We'll just empty them out as we need them. Alright, so let's start by filling out the board. So let's start with the most important things in the game. We're building ships, so these spots over here is going to be for the ship parts. So of course you're going to have the beginning, the middle, and the end of the ships. So let's do that. Now, for the middle, there's 2 stacks. There's going to be the stack of 1s and the stack of 2s. What I would suggest is just put out the stacks of 1s and 2s next to each other. And then just... the tower is so high, don't stack them on top of each other because it's going to fall over and be a disaster. Alright, so you got your freight train tiles here, you'll put them here. Now you're going to fill up all the the empty slots below by just flipping them over. I won't bore you with this step, but you get the idea that it can be a bit tedious. And we will be redoing this every round. Alright, just fill up all the slots here. Alright, then we got our canal tiles here. There's a big stack here. You're going to do the exact same thing. Flip them over. Alright, so let's talk about our action board here. So there's 3 of them that are printed on the board. Those ones always start there. Alright, now for the other 4, just completely randomize it. Now there's a special one here, the money symbol. I got it on the side here. This one's only used in a 4-player game. So if in a 4-player you'll put it there, but because I'm simulating 3 players, I'll just toss this back in the box. Alright, now it's going to become the headache part, which is setting up our employee tiles up here. So what I would suggest, and play with this all the time, alternate the green and brown employee tiles in the middle section here. I'll explain why in the rules, but it makes the game a bit fair. Alright, they do come in pairs. Every single employee tile comes in pair. I think if you're playing 2 players, you're only playing with a single one, but 3 and 4 you'll play with the pair. Alright. Then the other pairs, they come in light brown and dark brown. So you're going to take all the light brown, shuffle them up together, and fill up all the rest of the spots. And then in the dark brown, find the matching pair and put them on top. So again, I won't bore you with this step, but this is the tedious part again. And you just fill it up. Then after, you'll find the pair and you'll find where they go. Alright, let's put our default rondel markers out. So there's going to be 4 of those. So for this track here, the commodities, it'll always start there. For all the other 3, just randomize it. So let's put it here, let's put it here, let's put it here. 5th one is the round tracker, so put it where how many players you are. So we're 3 players, so I'll put it on the 3. Alright, just a couple of extra things before we move to player boards. You got your money, you can put it here, put it next to the board, use poker chips, it's all good. And lastly, for this, we got our point scoring trackers here. These are the discs. Put them on the 0 space of the point tracker over here. Let's go see our player boards. So you'll give them a nice player sheet here. They're not boards, they're sheets, that's all good. You're gonna give them their action marker, their little boat for the canal, it's so cute. Their starting freight cart, it's gonna have 1 of each. $6. And lastly, they're gonna get 3 blue and 3 green. They don't have to choose just yet. I'll teach you in the rules when you actually have to discard these, but just give them those to look over. And there you go, we're all set up. course, I was going to show you when everything's all nicely set up here. So when you fill up all the slots, make sure to double up your employees, find the matching pair, put them out. One thing I did forget to mention the setup, I'll explain in the rules too, but there are stacks of 1s and 2s. When refilling from now on, make sure always to use a stack of 1s until they run out and then replace them with a stack of 2s. Alright, so now let's go to rules. Alright, welcome to the rules section for Shipyard. So what is Shipyard? What are you doing? Well, it's sort of a rondelish type game where you have rondels all over the place. But in all seriousness, you're going to be spending most of your time along this action wheel over here, selecting your action. And that action, there's 7 tiles, will tell you from which of the 7 areas of the board here you're going to be taking tiles or getting resources from. So it's very simple. You're going to be just going around and around and around. And eventually you'll trigger the end game. Alright, let's talk about scoring before we go into anything. So the game is called Shipyard. They're not lying. You want to build ships. That's the only way to score during the game, is completing ships. And second, you have contracts, endgame contracts that you can score. So we do have a stack of green and blue contract cards. By the end game, you'll only have 1 of each. You'll score it. During the game, the only way to score is during a shakedown cruise. You'll look at this chart up here and you can score according to your speed and items on your ship. Alright, so very, very important. Alright, so let's just talk about a broad overview of a turn, and then we'll go into each of those sections and we'll talk about all the particularities of it, because the game is really simple. You just have to know what every action does and how the game flows. Okay, so on your turn, you're going to follow the same 5 steps. Alright, so let's go into each of those 5 steps. Alright, step 1, super simple. You're going to take the tile that you're currently on, or that player's turn, and move it to the front of the line. That's it. You just have to watch out for one thing. If that leading tile ever encounters the trailing tile, you just have to move up the trailing tile so that there's at least 1 space gap between the leading tile and the trailing tile. This can happen if everyone's taking the same 4 or 5 actions over and over. That means the snake keeps continuing with those 5 tiles and some of the tiles are left behind. Alright, step 2, actually picking your action. So from where you are, you can pick any action on the grid. 2 restrictions, not the first one because that was the last action that you took, so you can't double up an action, and you can't go on a spot where an opponent's pawn is on. So I can go here, or here, here, or here. So let's say that. Step 3, collecting income. So we're gonna have to check a few things when collecting income. So the first thing you'll do is for every opponent's pawn ahead of you on the track, you're gonna collect a gold from the bank. So in this case, if I went there, I'd collect 1 gold. If I decided to take this action or this action or this action, I would collect 2 gold because there's 2 pawns ahead of me on the track. Alright. The second thing you'll check is if you took an action before every other opponent's pawn, you'll check to see if there's 3 empty spots minimum between your action tile and the tile in front of you. For every 3, you'll also collect an extra gold. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 4. So you'll collect 3 from the pot, 1 for the range and 2 for the opponents ahead of me. Now, different situation, if I took this one, it would still only be 2 because there's 0 between this action tile and the one in front. Same thing goes from here. I would only collect 2 because there's only 1 between this action tile and the one in front of me. So only this tile here would actually give me 3 from the bank and not 2. Part 4 is actually doing your actions. So let's talk about all these actions and see if there's any special cases for them. Alright, so let's start with the simplest ones, which is gather, I guess, their resources in this game. So these are for the green and brown rondels up here. So what you're going to do is as soon as you land on one of these 2 actions, you're going to move up the neutral pawn 1 space. So let's say I did the brown action, I'd go here. Now I have a choice. I can either take that resource, so a smokestack from the stack for free, or I can pay 1 for every jump I want to make. So let's say I wanted a sail up there, I would have to pay 2 to the bank and then move the pawn up there and then take a sail. Same thing goes for the green. You move it once and then I have to pay 1 for every jump I want to make. So let's say I want to get the propeller, I'd pay 1 to the bank and move it there, take a propeller and put on my game board. Just note, for all these resources, I like to keep them on the side of the board here because you don't have to assign them to your ships being built right away. It's just when you send them on a shakedown cruise that they go on. So just stack them up here or put them on the ship, it doesn't really matter. Alright, so those are those two actions, or rondelles. Next, we'll talk about the other rondelle that's in the top right over there. That's for your employee / technologies. They sort of give you a game breaking or extra ability during the game. You just have to look at the book. They're all pretty clear, I guess. Some give you extra resources, some let you break the rules by putting extra smokestacks, or so on and so on. Alright, so how does this work? The exact same way as that rondelle. You move it once for free, and you take one of the above tiles, or you can pay 1 to move it ahead. For every spot you'd pay 1 gold. So let's say I really wanted this tile here, I would have to pay 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd pay 4 to the bank to make that movement. Now, they are all free except for the green and brown ones. Those cost 1 gold to take. Alright, any other one is free. The only exceptions or rules that you need to know about these technologies are you're never allowed to have 2 of the same, and there are these commodity ones. Let me just take one. One has a 1 anchor on it, and the other one has a 3. You need to have the 1 anchor version of that commodity before you take the 3 version of it. Alright, so those are the only 2 special cases there. Now let's talk about some of these gathering of tile actions. So there's 2 of them in particular. So one is very easy. It's getting a freight train. So you just pay the cost that's next to it and pick it up. So these 2 cost 2, these 2 cost 1, and this one costs 3. So if you took this action, you can basically take this tile, put it in your game board, and then just slide everything down. Alright, easy enough. Renting canals here works the exact same way. You're gonna pay the cost that's on the left here. So these 2 cost 2, these 2 cost 1, this one's free. You're gonna take the tile and slide everything down. Now, very important, if it's your first tile that you have, because you don't start with one, you're gonna have to put your ship on the tile on one of the entrance spaces. So let's say I put it here. The direction of the ship actually matters, because when you send your ship on a shakedown cruise, he's actually going to move along the canal. Alright? But if it's not your first tile, guess what? You have to connect it to your current tile, any way you like. I would suggest to make it as long as possible, your canal, so if you send a really fast boat, he can actually travel along the canal. Alright, and this would be on the side of your board. For all these tiles, once you take a tile, you just refill. Waterfall mode, just move everything down. Alright, so before we talk about the ships, let's talk about the commodity rondelle over here. So this rondelle is the only rondelle where you can't pay to move it forward. So let's say it starts at the game off here. The first person to land on this is just going to move forward 1 spot, and you must do the action from that spot. So what does the action actually do for you? You're going to turn in a freight train card and take either money for each of these resources or resources. These are commodities actually. Alright, so you can decide, see, for the black or coal, you can take a smokestack, a propeller, or $2. You decide the same thing for blue and yellow. So you can take a sail, a soldier, a cannon, or $2. And for yellow, you can decide a crane, a captain, a merchant, or $2. That's it. So if you had 3 coal on here, you can decide to take $4 and a smokestack. The only special case for this is if you have multiple of the same commodity on the freight train tile, you can't take the same commodity in the middle or resource in the middle. So if I had 3 coal in here, I couldn't take 3 smokestacks. I could take 6 money, 2 for each, but I can only take 1 smokestack, 1 propeller from this middle section. You get everything from the general supply here, and you add it to your board. Then you discard this, obviously. Alright, lastly, and funnest action, we're going to be talking about building your ship. So that's actually getting ship tiles to put in your shipyard. Alright, so again, just like the freight here, you're going to be paying the cost that's on the left here. So if you took this tile, and this tile, let's say you'd pay 4 because this costs 1, 1, and 2. So you just pay the cost of what's on the left. You can take 1 to 3 tiles, I forgot to mention, when you do that action. So if you want, you can take these 3 and you don't want to pay anything. Or you can take this one, and this one, you pay 3 to the bank. So I'll just simulate that I took a bunch of tiles just so I can show you what happens when you build it on your player board. So let's say I had these tiles. There are some rules for placement in your shipyard. So this is your shipyard, the area at the bottom. So whenever you get a tile, you have to place them in your shipyard right away, and you can't move them afterwards. So make sure you're playing them correctly. So a couple of rules is you always have to put tiles in your shipyard so that you're able to build ships with that tile in the future. I'll just show you with an example. For example, you can't put an end piece at the front of your shipyard because you'd never be able to build a ship with this tile, right? Same thing, you can't put a second from the beginning because ships have to be minimum length 3, so you'd never be able to build a ship of minimum length 3 with a tile here. Same thing with the front, obviously, you can't put it at the end and you can't put it here. Because even if I put an end slot here, it's not a ship of length 3, so this is an illegal move. Alright, besides that, you can literally put your tiles any way you like in your shipyard. Again, remembering that you have to make ships of minimum length 3, so you can never have a front and a back next to each other on your shipyard. Alright, so I'll just give you a random example. Something like this is legal. You're gonna be like, how is this legal? These aren't ships. Well, that's because I can put a middle here, and as soon as you finish a ship, it goes off to be a real ship, and you're gonna take it for a shakedown cruise. So let's say there was a middle piece here. I'll just put it in there. Boom, this ship's gonna go to a shakedown cruise. Now that that ship's left, all of these start making more sense. So now I can put an end piece here, and this can be sent off to be on a shakedown cruise. And for this one, I would just have them a front here, a bunch of middles here, and an end here, let's say, and that one can be sent off as a very long ship for the ship shakedown cruises, right? So you're very flexible on where you can put your tiles at the bottom here. You can have multiple end pieces all connected together as long as you can build ships with those tiles in the future. Alright, those are all the actions. Again, once you take tiles, you move everything down, waterfall style. And you fill up the tiles. Always stack 1 first, and then when they run out, you stack 2 for the middle section. For the ends, just use the ends. Alright, let's go to the next section. Alright, part 5 is the shakedown cruise. So this only happens if you ever build a ship on your turn. If you don't, just skip this step. So we're gonna have to look at our shipyard for this. So the shakedown cruise is all about scoring your ship and scoring stuff on your canal and gaining points, right? So remember what I said in the overview, there's only 2 ways to score points. One of them is sending out your ships to the shakedown cruise. All right, so before we tackle your scoring, we're gonna have to sort of diagnose a ship and figure out where all these items go on a ship. So they all have a prerequisite sort of area that they go. So the propeller obviously needs to go in a spot like this with the red propeller at the end. So you just take it and you put it there. Alright, green and blue works the exact same way. One's for cranes. Cranes. And one's for cannons. Alright, easy enough. Black, you can use it either for sails or smokestacks. So let's say here I'll put 1 of each. And finally, every ship needs to have a captain, and he doesn't need to be in a I guess these are called cabin, right? So he doesn't need to be in a cabin, so you can just put him anywhere on the ship. Right? Any other crew has to go in a cabin, including a second captain. He would be considered an officer and he would go into a cabin. Right? So let's just say I would take this guy and put him in my cabin. See, now I'm ready to score. I'm ready to send this boat out. You don't have to use your resources on the ship to send it out. Obviously, if I wanted, I didn't have to put this crane on here, and I can still send it out to do a shakedown cruise. I just decided to put it on there to score extra points. Alright, when that happens, normally what I do is I move the ship up and I'm ready to score looking at this chart over here. Alright, so the hardest thing to calculate is the speed. So we'll talk about that first because the rest of the stuff is pretty easy. So the speed, you're going to look at these two charts over here and you're going to follow one of two paths. So you're going to follow the path on the left or the path on the right. So as long as your ship has a smokestack and a propeller, you'll follow this column here. And if it doesn't, you'll follow this column here. So because my ship does have a smokestack and a propeller, I'm going to look here. So my base speed is going to be 4. And then for every sail, smokestack, or extra propeller, I'll gain a +1 speed. So the speed of this ship that I have right here would be 5 because I have a smokestack and a propeller, which gives me 4 speed, and an extra sail, which is 5 speed. So that's going to score me 5 points. Right? Let's just say I had a ship here that I was sending out here as well. This thing would only have a speed of 1 because it doesn't have a smokestack and a propeller. So it would go down this column, and it doesn't have any of these other 3 things, so its speed is 1. Alright, so you're going to look here, you're going to score your speed, which is 5, let's say here. Then you're going to score 2 points for every crane and cannon that you have, so obviously I'm going to score 4 extra points. And then you'll score 1 point for every captain, merchant, and soldier, so I would score an extra 2 points. And then, finally, you're going to send them out through the canal and score extra bonus points. So the way that works is you're going to take the speed of your ship, so it's 5, and you're going to move your token 5 spaces. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would end up here. For every token you go over, you're going to score bonus points. So here is for every merchant / crane you have on your ship, you'll score an extra point. So that's an extra 2 points because I have a crane and a merchant. And then this one is for every lifeboat you have on your ship, score an extra point. I actually have one here, so I'll score an extra point. Cool. The orientation of your ship actually matters when you're moving through the canal, so when you're moving, always go forward. And that's it, those are the rules. There's 2 very, very important particular cases for all this. If you send out a ship with no captain, so if you finish a ship and it has to go out on a canal on the shakedown cruise and you don't have a captain, you score 0 points. So you have to have a captain. And the second way to score no points is if you have to move your ship here in the canal and you don't have enough spaces to go forward, it'll also score 0. So for example, if my speed here was 10, for example, just a random example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the most I can go is 6. So this ship would score 0 points because I can't actually finish my shakedown cruise, which is my speed. Alright, you'll total all that up and you'll move yourself up on the track once you figured out what your shakedown cruise score was, and then you move on to the next player. Alright? Alright, those are all the rules. It's a very long one. I did forget a couple of things under game round stuff, so that one thing I did forget is in step 4, when you're performing your action, you can pay 6 gold to do another action as a bonus. You don't have to move your pawn, you don't get an extra gold. It could be any other action except for the one you did that turn. Pay 6 gold and you just do the action. Alright, now let's go to the turn structure stuff. So now these tiles are going to be moving forward and keep leading new tiles and so on. How the round goes down is whenever a tile ends up in this corner space here, you're going to move down the round tracker. Okay, you're going to do that 3 times in a 3-player game, and then you'll hit the red marker, which is triggering the end game. Alright, so some stuff that happens in between rounds is the contract removal. So in a 3-player game, every single round you'll remove one of the colored contracts that you have. So you have 3 of each, you'll discard 1 blue and 1 green. And then you go down another round, you'll discard another blue and another green. So at the end game, you'll have 1 of each color. In a 4-player game, you're going to discard 2 of each on space 2. Alright, that's the difference between a 4 and a 3-player game. Now, as I said, you can trigger the end game with the red spot. There's also a second way for the game to trigger its end game, is if any of these stack of tiles are finished. So if either all the fronts are finished, all the backs are finished, or if all the middles are finished, that'll trigger the endgame. Now, when endgame is triggered, everyone gets one final action. You basically remove your pawns from the board and you can do any action. Nothing is blocked. And then even after that, it's very particular, this game. So you get your final action, and even after your final action, you can buy any boat tile, one boat tile, to try to finish a ship to finally send off your last shakedown cruise. That's it. You get one final action, you can buy one ship part if there's any left, and try to send off a ship in the shakedown cruise. And that's it. Then you calculate, you find the total, and you see who wins. Alright, see you in the walkthrough, playthrough, or the next video. Later.